You have signal? 10-0. And it's not the good guys, is it? I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, everybody, thank you. I appreciate your time coming in, sitting in on this session, identifying water leaks to reduce downtime. My name is Cam Rogers. I've been at RLE Technologies about 11 years now. We've seen and heard a lot of horror stories. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the best practices. Tonight, basically, the intent of this is to get you thinking about something you've maybe not thought about as much before, thinking more about it, and that's damage and downtime as a result of water-related issues. So, kind of get you in the right mindset. And I want to start with a quick story. Imagine it's Monday morning, and you're just getting into the office, and you pour that first cup of coffee, and you realize you need to get something out of the basement. And you go over, get in the elevator, take the elevator down, and as the elevator's going down, water level's coming up in the elevator itself. And when the door's finally open, you're standing in over 3 feet of water. That'll get your heart going a little bit. Probably won't need to finish that first cup of coffee in the morning. This is actually a true story. University Library actually had a water leak, a water main broke over the weekend. Nobody was there to identify the issue. It continued leaking all weekend long. Certainly nobody there to identify the issue. There was nobody there to resolve the issue. So by the time anybody got in on Monday morning, there was over 3 feet of water in their storage area in the basement of the university. Now everybody, I'm sure, probably has horror stories of their own, whether residential or commercial. I will say that if you don't worry. It's just a matter of time. And what we're really trying to do is get people thinking about those issues that might result or might lead to damage and downtime, addressing those issues before they become very serious. Before we're done here this evening, what I want to do in the next 30 minutes really is give you a quick overview of the issues as far as the damage and downtime as a result of water leaks, overcoming that common objection that I hear on a regular basis where it's just not in our budget. It's funny how people find budget after the fact, but before the fact, it's just not in the budget. Introduce you to some basic systems that are already on the market, as far as the different types of systems and solutions that are available. Also give you kind of a quick overview as far as the introduction, be able to kind of design a simple system or a basic system to accommodate specific needs that you might have. And then wrap it up when I'm all done, give you a little introduction to one product that's already currently on the market from RLE Technologies. So after it's all over, I encourage you, take any questions that you might have. Small group, and we'll see how it goes. But I also encourage, as a small group, if you have something as I'm talking, a quick question, we can certainly address it so that you have to wait until it's all said and done. So, all right, this is a study put together by Contingency Planning Research, which is a division of Eagle Rock, and they identified the 3 leading causes of business downtime. Does anybody want to take a guess as to what the #1 cause of business downtime is?
Power.
What was that?
Power.
Water leaks? No. Power, yes, exactly. This was a study that was put together, like I say, an independent study. They identified the leading causes, power-related issues. Number 2 is water-related issues. Now I can cite a number of examples where a power outage was as a result of a water issue in the first place. I think arguably I might have a good case saying that water leaks are one of, basically could be the leading cause of business downtime. Now, certainly hardware failure. What we're really looking to do as far as systems and with RLE, again, is identifying those issues before they become catastrophic and identifying exactly what the impacts of downtime might be. So now this study, as far as an independent study put together by IT Performance Engineering and Measurement Strategies, identified what an hour of downtime might cost different industries. And these are certainly tangible costs. I was out at one, as a matter of fact, a brokerage firm, and they had a sprinkler head that broke. Water came down, just missed the servers, it took down their PBX phone system, but almost took down the entire stock exchange. I won't say stock exchange, it wasn't a stock exchange, but as a trading floor. But when you look at it, some of these credit card authorizations, that might be dependent on what time of year it is as well. Certainly during the Christmas holidays, a credit card authorization site going down, that can add up quite a bit more. what a lot of people don't take into account, certainly there you can put kind of a tangible dollar amount as far as repairs and equipment costs and what it takes to get people to repair those problems. But there's certainly a lot of intangibles as well as far as taking people off of projects that they might already be on and redirecting their energies and putting them back up into resolving the issue or resolving those problems. Certainly employee productivity, morale. When you're thinking about, at the office, you're working and suddenly you don't have email and the servers are down, that can be pretty frustrating, and who knows what that might be for attitudes. Then the other thing would be customer confidence. When you're looking at a service provider, maybe a communications company, or for example, a cellular service provider. If they have an issue with one of their shelters and there's downtime at the shelter, what's that going to do for your confidence as a customer? You might end up going with another service just because the service you're using isn't working. So there's a lot more beyond just that tangible, that real known value as far as the dollar amount to repair those costs. But what I really encourage people to do is think about what an hour of downtime would cost your organization or an organization that you're working with. Really trying to put pen to paper and think about the redirection of efforts, thinking about as far as beyond just the immediate repair costs, because then you can start really identifying that return on investment and what that return on investment would be as far as actually incorporating the detection system as far as before something happens. So I wish I could have $1 for every time I've heard this. And over the years, I've been out on so many sites and I've done proposals for companies, and I give a proposal, basic to comprehensive, and the response is, that sounds great. This is, that thing looks great. We'd love to have something like that, but it's just not in our budget. Very common response. And what I really try to do at that point is address those issues and kind of identify what we can do to really help them understand. Now, the first case study, as far as it's not in our budget that I want to share, is a cable service provider. And I went out to a major telecommunications company. They just built a new corporate data center high-rise. All their data centers were stacked throughout the entire building, so very thought out as far as this new building went. We went ahead and proposed a solution, ran leak detection, ran up the wall to connecting it to the next floor right on up the building, tied that all into the building management system, gave them a fairly basic quote, and gave it to my contact, and the contact came back and said, my manager shot it down. It makes sense, but it's not in our budget. And so what ended up happening over the course of the next 4 months, they had 4 separate occurrences of water intrusion into their building. Everything from structural failures where water got into critical areas to leaks within their data centers and as far as communications rooms. And their cost as far as on the last occurrence alone was almost $250,000 worth of tangible damage to servers, equipment, and repairs within that room, let alone the service as far as the support stoppage and everything else. What was interesting was that after that 4th occurrence, water getting into their site, my contact calls me up and he says, my boss came in my office this morning and he said, why didn't this fancy leak detection system that we put in pick this up? And he said, well, you know what, we shot that out of the budget. He said we couldn't do it. We didn't have the money for it. And so the story goes, the guy's boss actually told him, whatever you had asked for originally in budget, double it up. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. They felt the pain and suddenly put a few dollars in for identifying those issues before they become serious. That's, once people put that money into it, and it's amazing to me how many stories I have where people will come after the fact, they can't afford it up front, all the repairs in the world, they put the money into it, and then suddenly money's not an object. Another quick story to share with you. In that case, in the high-rise building, the original quote was around $14,000, and then we finished it up and actually fixing the water supply return lines overhead, underraised floors, and even in some other areas that they hadn't thought about. All told, I want to say the final solution is about $32,000, which in the big picture is a drop, no pun intended, every pun intended, is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the water. I got some bad puns there, but I'll try to steer clear. Another interesting story that we had is actually it was a pharmaceutical company, and we went out on site and they had all the utilities running on the top floor of the building. And so they had water lines and everything else was up to upstairs. And through the course of the site survey upstairs, we identified no less than about a dozen, I think it was close to 14 leaking pipes and leaking valves upstairs above this pharmaceutical production. And when we came back down, they actually had a contracted service that was managing the site. I'm not going to mention any names, but a very large organization. Their response was that, yeah, we're aware of those leaks, but none of them are really bad enough for us to worry about. There are containment areas, there's some, drainage areas, so those little leaks aren't a big problem. And we put together a basic quote again, and when all was said and done, what ended up happening was after we put the quote together, while I was waiting for approvals, they had one of those water lines break. They ended up water raining down on some analysis of equipment to the tune of about $1 million worth of equipment was damaged and had to get replaced. And so suddenly, the urgency, okay, now we got to get something in place. Yeah, we have problems, what can we do? Put together a nice proposal for them, a little bit more comprehensive system. And in this one, sometimes the truth is just better than fiction. It was on a gentleman's desk waiting for final approvals. While he was sitting at his desk, he felt something hit his nose. And he felt it again, and he looked up, and a water line above his desk actually was happened to be a sewer return line, one of the floors above. Ended up rupturing, and then it started sagging on the tile. It was dripping through the tile a little bit, and I guess this sort of story has the timing was he looked up and that tile gave way and it all came down on top. Like I say, sometimes the truth is better than fiction. But, so we ended up putting a very comprehensive system in there, wrapping pipes again, incorporating distance read leak detection, one technology we'll talk a little bit about. But when that initial equipment was damaged, it was over $1 million, as I mentioned. And before that, we had that other line burst before final approvals were given. So every site that I go in already has alarm notification systems in place. Very cost effective, everybody has it. Unfortunately, it's not the best solution. Reactionary mentality is never going to be a good solution. What we really try to focus on are a few different factors, and that's identify all the issues. Where are the sources of water leaks? I hear a lot of people in data centers worry about the water lines, the chiller lines running under the floor, but they're not thinking about the restrooms upstairs. They're not thinking about what might share a common wall or what might be on the outside of the building. A great example of that was the trading floor that I went out to. When I was talking to him on the final site survey, I asked what's on the outside of this wall right here, and the gentleman said that's kind of paused and said that's the men's restroom. And they just had never thought about that they were sharing a common water wall until I got out there and asked that question. I've been out on sites where they just multi-million-dollar expansion, and the guy's showing me here's a cabinet right here. This is one server is $200,000. It's literally racks and rows of servers like that. And I looked up at the ceiling and I said, you did cap off those water lines with the old sprinkler lines, right? And the guy kind of paused. A week later, called me back and said they had not. They didn't talk about that. Just kind of missing some of the details there. But what we're really trying to get people to think about is understanding those downtime costs. That helps drive what that return on investment might be. We have a lot of insurance companies that are offering incentives to put leak detection, install leak detection. We get calls regularly from people who have been audited from their insurance company. They didn't have leak detection, so now what's happening is they're going to install it. Certainly the discounts on their insurance, there's a certain return on investment in that alone, aside from identifying those leaks before they become devastating. But the bottom line is don't wait for those issues. It's just a matter of time. So as far as common sources of leaks, I talked a little bit about it. But when I walk into a building, the first thing I do is I look around. Most people kind of walk like this. I'm actually looking at the ceiling as I'm walking through that building. And you see all those telltale brown stains all over the place. That's a start of something. And identifying that, what can we do to identify that before it gets real serious? Certainly locating those threats on the floor, behind walls, overhead, but thinking about the big picture. You have a few different applications, certainly with leak detection, under raised floors or fixed to water lines, in drip pans. Now, when we get into that, or actually encapsulating areas of concern, and I'll touch on that as I get into the systems that are there. Spot detectors, no question, only good for a confined area. A small little area that's basically a dammed area where water has nowhere to go except for that single point. I've seen people try to use spot detectors on the floor. Murphy's Law will always take place and the water's going to roll right around. You'll never catch it. But generally they're going to consist of a couple of probes that are sticking down. Water just bridges those two probes and it creates some water condition. And then generally you'll integrate those into another system. Sensing cable is designed for those open areas, encapsulate areas of concern. Where the nice thing about that is that as opposed to a single spot, you can actually run it around equipment that might be damaged, or you can run it around those sources of leaks. And what we really need to do is understand, there are a few different types of leak detection cable available on the market. Mesh covered cables, and I have some samples you can look at when you're done, but that'll retain moisture, they're hard to dry. One manufacturer recommends you have a hair dryer on site to dry the cable after it gets wet. A lot of people don't have hair dryers on site. We also, as far as point sensors, there are some systems that may claim to be a leak detection cable, but it's just literally a series of spot detectors along the length of the cable. Again, not going to be quite as reliable as a true cable-based solution. And then another type as far as leak detection cable, for example, when you look at the cable, you have sensor wires running parallel, but some cables will actually have a conductive jacket on those sensing wires. Problem with that is dirt or dust landing on that jacket. Over time, it will eventually bridge those two sensing wires and result in false alarms and nuisance alarms. And I know people turning off the systems because they get tired of those. Suddenly you think you have leak detection, but somebody turned it off just to quiet the system. You don't have leak detection. And then when you're looking at the controllers, there are really two types of controllers we can integrate leak detection cable into. We can do a zone system, which will tell you water's in contact with the cable. It won't tell you where. So maybe in a small area where you can walk in and see a cable on the floor, you can identify where that issue is easily. A zone controller works well. The distance read controllers that are available on the market will pinpoint the exact location. And I'll give you a quick example of that as I wrap up here in a couple minutes. But what that'll actually do is we can run well over 5,000 feet of cable. And if water comes in contact with it, it'll actually give you a display. Some controllers will call your cell phone, give you direct notification, let you know exactly where that issue is. Maybe even a visual indicator on a map showing you where the problem is. So you walk into an area, for example, like a data center, raised floor environment, you can literally lift one floor tile, take care of the problem. There's no hunting and searching, trying to figure out where those issues are. And then when we get into design solutions, what we really need to do is identify what the best solution is going to be. Is it going to be spot detectors? Is it going to be cable? Is it going to be a combination? Maybe a little bit of both. Do you want to go around just the perimeter route? Or do you want to go ahead and maybe serpentine back and forth? Make sure you're capturing more areas that way. But every application is unique. Certainly determining the appropriate controller. Do you need local enunciation? Or are you tying into a management system? Or building a network management system for the notification side of it. Certainly knowing how the controller is going to be used, standalone or integrated. And then what I generally recommend, and I encourage every one of you, is you're looking at a site or an opportunity. All I need is a map. I can help you put together a system. And we certainly can talk you through that, help you design what might be the best solution for you. And then basic components, kind of wrap up the solution in itself. You're going to have a controller, sensing cable and or spot detectors. Generally, we're going to incorporate either cable clips to secure the cable to the floor, a zip tie, maybe we'll fix it to water supply return lines overhead. There's certainly the power adapter and then some of the accessories that are available, maybe a cable splitter that will allow you to split the cable in multiple directions without having to run multiple cables for that coverage. Come to a T and a water line, you can easily split that. Again, different manufacturers have different accessories to help you out. I have people send me basic hand sketch drawings and they say, what do I do? And in an application or something like this, I'll take a look at it, make recommendations where you might install cable splitters, where you might install spot detectors underneath drip pans and air conditioning units or something of that nature. From a simple hand sketch drawing, we take it to something a little bit more comprehensive that actually has full distance markers on it that you can reference in the event of a water leak. And then even getting more comprehensive solutions where everything from the troughs themselves, where you have troughs cut in the floor, encapsulating areas of concern. But I've seen some pretty comprehensive solutions and systems out there. Every site's unique, it's a thing. And understanding what your requirements are, what coverage, where those potential sources of water leaks might be, is what's really important with that. So, kind of wrapping up the side of it, as far as installing the right solution, every site is unique. There's no cookie cutter solution when it comes to leak detection. What you really need to do is identify what is the most critical areas that you need coverage here today. And start with that. Take some steps. I can't encourage you enough to start thinking about that before it gets to that point where it's reactionary. Because we get calls every day where it's reactionary. People say, well, we had that issue. It cost us a lot of money. Now we've got to fix the problem. And then also certainly keep in mind what that big picture might be. Down the road, what would you like to accomplish as budget allows? And most of the systems on the market today, they have that scalability functionality, so you can actually even add more lengths of cable as needs arise or as budget allows. So, before I jump into the demonstration, any questions on what I've talked about? I've covered a lot pretty quick, trying to keep in that 30-minute window here. But, any questions at all? We can make it easy. I'm sorry? New facilities. No question. Most new facilities, we're actually seeing a new emerging trend where new buildings are being built entirely on raised floors. So you can easily move things around. Now you have plumbing running next to electrical, running next to network cabling and everything else. And to incorporate leak detection in that environment, a few years ago, the Beijing Olympics, everyone remember that one building, kind of a funky N-shaped building that kept showing every now and then throughout the event. That one building has over 17 kilometers of leak detection cable installed. Underneath all those the entire building's built on raised floors. And suddenly you have an area where you have water lines that's going to make it a lot easier to identify and resolve that issue if you can identify the area. So I would say new construction. Generally, we see in Division 16, the HVAC section, as far as specs. Div 16 will cover the leak detection, but certainly you can fall pretty much anywhere. Bottom line, water and electronics will go home. So. As far as leak detection, not really. I mean, certainly if you're installing cable on a plenum on, it needs to be plenum rated, but other than that, it's all low voltage. So we see a lot of everything from end users to contractors. It's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Laying the cable down and then plugging it in. So no real standards in this time.
Plenum spaces.
Plenum spaces, for example, well, it depends on the cable. Our cable, for example, is CL2P rated, so it's actually fire code friendly. We're actually now working on a zero halogen cable as well, low smoke zero halogen. We have some applications we're working on with one of the undergrounds that they have to have a zero halogen cable in it. So, it's one thing that we certainly look at the market, what's required, and we have that ability to kind of go that direction. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and just real quick. It's funny because on our demo, as far as at our booth, I poured some water on the table like this. And the cleaning crew actually came by and cleaned it up for me. They didn't realize it was part of my demo. Is it going to run off? No. But so the cleaning crew came by and they thought somebody just spilled their drink on our table itself. But this is our RLE's LD2100. And the LD2100 is a web-based appliance. Basically, water comes in contact with the cable itself. And you can set the sensitivity, alarm delay. But as you can see, we already have an alarm condition, and it's going to tell me that I have a leak detected at 33 feet. So it's pinpointing the exact location of where that water's in contact with the cable. Now I can go ahead, that'll actually send direct email alerts out. It'll integrate via SMP, Modbus, even backlit protocols. It serves up its own web page, and we can give you a live demo. Our booth is literally, it's 1311, but you can actually, with your handheld device, log into the unit. You can see a floor map and you can see a flashing indicator on the cable, show you exactly where the problem is. So you don't even need to have a map hanging on the wall. It just makes it real easy to identify the issue. Again, when it comes to addressing water leaks, It's all about timing. How quick can you get that alarm to the right person? If you have several layers before it gets to that person, how much damage can be done by the time that person resolves the issues? And that's what we're really focused on, trying to get people to do a little bit more of that. So, any other questions before I wrap it up? I encourage you to stop by our booth. I got, matter of fact, flash drives that have product literature I'm going to hand out to everybody. Also have a very comprehensive PowerPoint presentation. And as a matter of fact, we have a raffle going on at 7:15. And as a thank you for coming into the session here this evening, I'm going to give every one of you a ticket. We're giving away 3 $50 gift cards. So you need to be present and just stop by at 7:15. We're minutes away from that, and you have a chance to win a quick $50 card as well. So I want to thank you very much for your time this evening, and if I can be of assistance or answer any questions, I'm going to stick around for a little bit after we're out. Thank you. Well, it's connected to, you'll get it, that's why. Yeah, the cable actually has the connectors pre-installed, so it makes it really easy to install. You just buy the appropriate sections, plug them together, extend the length, you don't need that.